how that works. It's called direct flow, cold water in, hot out, direct heated by the sun. Hi guys, welcome to Asher and Gad channel, making Africa home again, one family at a time. So today I'm bringing you a brief video really to answer some questions that I got on email. I had a couple of questions after our last video asking me, number one, how does my solar tank actually work? What are the different types and how much does it cost? So I'm just doing this video to cover briefly, the principle of operation, the types that I just mentioned, and this really is aimed at evacuated tube solar water tanks. Okay, there are generally two types. You have the evacuated tube ones and you also have the flat plate ones. In this video I will not talk about the flat plate ones. They are on the market, not as efficient, so therefore a bit cheaper, but we have the evacuated tube, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this video. I will also talk about the optional accessories that come with the system, which you can purchase. I'll describe briefly the function of the main controller that comes in the package. As I've mentioned, and as usual, we'll provide a typical cost for the solar water tank system. And also, not in this video, but again, there has been some questions regarding, what is it like solar water versus instantaneous electric heaters. So I'll do a follow-on video to compare and contrast the pros and cons of solar water heaters versus your standard instantaneous electric heaters. And also I'll probably do another follow-on video where I'll describe in a bit more detail how the flat plate solar water tank works. But this video is all about the evacuated tube solar water tanks. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Now, so for those of you who are subscribed to our channel, the picture on your screen that shows our solar water tank on the roof. So you've seen it a number of times. It's a 250 liter solar water tank, and it's what we call the heat pipe, indirect type of evacuated tube solar water tank. Now, how that works is, if you look at the image, those tubes that are connected from the tank and come down at an angle to the floor, those are what we call, it's a toughened glass construction. Okay, there are two layers of glass, one glass within another, and in between the glass they've sucked out all the air, so there's a vacuum in between the glass. Okay, so that's why it's called evacuated tube, because the tube has been evacuated of air. That's where the name comes from. Now, within the center of the inner glass there is a copper pipe, and they call it a copper heat pipe. Okay, copper is very good at conducting heat, so that's one of the reasons why it's in there. So there's a copper pipe, and then below that copper pipe, I'm showing you an image on your screen just so you can to visualize it a bit. At the bottom of that copper pipe and the bottom of the inner glass, there is a liquid, right? And that liquid is alcohol. Okay, it's quite neat the way it works. That liquid is alcohol, and what happens is, when the sun shines on the tubes during the day, the alcohol, which is as a liquid at the bottom of the tube, heats up. It heats up significantly, and then it changes state or changes phase. Going back to secondary school education here. So it changes from a liquid, becomes a vapor, becomes a gas. And as we know, hot air rises. Okay, so the alcohol, which has become a vapor, rises to the top of the tank. Now that copper pipe, if you like, the copper pipe is from the bottom of the tube, and it goes through the water tank, and then inside the water tank you have a copper, what they call a copper tank, or a copper manifold, being the right term. Again, I'm showing you a picture of on your screen. Yeah, you've got a copper manifold. So what happens is, that copper manifold, okay, is inside the actual 250 liter water tank. So it's surrounded by cold water that has come into the tank from your plumbing system. All right, so back to the alcohol. The alcohol rises as hot vapor, right? That alcohol, that vapor, that gas then enters the copper tank, copper tank, sorry, which is in the solar water tank, surrounded by cold water. So what happens is that the heat from the alcohol vapor is transferred into the copper tank, and then because the copper tank is surrounded by cold water, that heat is transferred from the copper tank or the copper manifold into the cold water. That's what makes your cold water now become very hot. Then it's pumped into your home. Okay, so that is the simple way it works. Okay, it's heat transfer from the alcohol, which is in the evacuated glass tubes, and they're evacuated to give them good insulating properties, because you don't want the hot air to be lost to the atmosphere. So the heat transfers from the alcohol, which is a liquid that becomes a vapor, into the copper manifold, and then from the copper manifold into the cold water. Water heats up, and then there you have your hot water. Now, as the water heats up, the hot alcohol vapor, when it loses heat, it condenses back into a liquid. Okay, so it's a hot vapor in the tank. As it loses heat to the cold water, and the cold water becomes hot for you to use, that alcohol condenses back into a liquid, and because it's a liquid, it's heavier, it falls back due to gravity back to where it started from in the first place, at the bottom of the glass tube. Okay, and then it's just a cycle that goes round and round and round and round. It's a cycle that happens continuously, especially throughout the day, to give you the hot water that you need. That's simply how the evaporated tube, the heat pipe indirect evaporated tube solar water heaters work. Okay, and that's the one we have. Now, there is a different type, and that different type I like to call this sort of the direct flow type. Again, I'm showing you a picture on your screen. It's a direct flow. It's a bit like on those ones, the pipes are U-shaped, because what you have is you have an inflow of cold water and then an outflow of hot water. Okay, it's as simple as that. So there are two pipes in a single tube, flow and return. Now, this is a little bit more efficient than the evacuated tube solar water heaters, because here there is no exchange of heat between fluids. And the one I explained previously, you've got the sun warming the alcohol transferring to the copper tank, and then the copper tank transferring to the cold water. But in this one, what is a direct flow? You've got cold water coming in the first section of the U-shaped tube. Then what it has, that tube is really made up of a heat absorbing reflective plate, right? Which causes, as the sun shines in it, causes the heat to transfer directly into the water. So it's a single heat transfer, and then that allows your hot water to go straight into the tank and into your home. Okay, the reflective plate has very good insulating properties, so it makes it very, very, very efficient, okay, as compared to the evacuated tube. That is in a nutshell how that works. It's called direct flow, cold water in, hot out, direct heated by the sun via the reflective plate I talked about. So the question is, what do you go for? Do you go for the evacuated tube, or do you go for the direct flow type? That is a personal choice. Do your research and decide what you want to go with. Okay, what I would say is don't go for the flat plate solar water heaters, because they are not as efficient. That they are at a much lower efficiency compared to the two that I just talked about. When I mean efficiency, I'm talking about how much sun needs to shine on the tube to get the water heated to the temperature you desire. You know, how much heat it uses and how much heat it loses. That's where they get the efficiency from. All right, so hopefully that was useful to you guys. There are other variables. For example, the evacuated tube solar water, some of them, they've got high pressure systems and low pressure systems. The high pressure system comes with a pump, which is the one we have. The low pressure system doesn't come with a pump. Those ones, you tend to have a smaller tank on top. Yeah, I'll show a picture on your screen. You have a smaller tank on top of the main tank. They are cheaper, but probably a bit more maintenance. And with those, you may not get the right pressure into your home. So that's why we decided not to go for those. We've gone for the high pressure system, because it's a drag, wanting to have a lovely shower and the water just dripping. We want to make sure we have enough pressure coming into our home. So that's why we're going for the high pressure evacuated tube heaters. All right, so now a couple of things to look out for when purchasing the system and during installation, and that's mainly to do with the accessories. I talked about the accessories earlier on. They are optional accessories. The first one is the pump. Okay, and now there are some high pressure systems that don't actually come with a pump. You've got to request it. So we had a pump, and we suggest that you should have a pump as well. Or really get your plumber to measure the pressure that that's coming into your home without the pump, first of all, and then you can make the assessment to see if you want the additional pump or not. But we decided to go for the automatic pump. And I talked about automatic pumps in a previous video. Obviously, you can go for a manual pump. If you don't understand the difference between manual and automatic pump, please click up here. Okay, click up here to watch our previous video where I explained clearly the difference between an automatic pump and a manual pump, because you need to know that so you don't buy the wrong thing. All right. So the pump is accessory number 1. Accessory number 2 is the standby electric heater, which we have as well. Okay. Now, obviously, you know, in Africa, in Ghana, we have sun all year round. There is a Harmattan season where it gets a bit cloudy, but even that, it's still quite humid, so there's still enough heat in the air. So you generally always have enough warm water. But if there are times where the cloud is significant and the water hasn't heated up to your desired temperature, then you can get a standby electric heater within the tank. And all you do is you press a button on your controller if the water isn't hot enough, so that it can give you an electric boost to boost the temperature up to your desired, and then you turn it off as quickly as possible, because electric does cost quite a bit of money when you're heating water by electric. I think that's part of a separate video I'll do: solar water heaters versus electric instantaneous heaters. Okay, so bear that in mind. It's good to have it. It doesn't cost too much as an accessory, so I suggest you have it. Regarding the pump, again, if you haven't watched our previous video, please click on the link I mentioned earlier and watch that, because it's important that you your plumber, you have a good plumber who understands the correct size of pipes, the correct falls, the correct joints, and understands the impact of that on the pressure. Because the more you have joints, the more you rise and fall on your pipes, you present a resistance, okay, or a pressure drop, right? And that will determine whether you need a pump or not, or the actual size of pump you need. Okay, so your plumber needs to really be on the ball and understand, you know, his system. And as usual in Ghana, it depends on the plumber you have. If you have a professional plumber who's gone to plumbing school and understands the calculations, the pressure drop calculations and all that he needs to do, then you should be fine. But if you have a plumber who is obviously been an apprentice and come up through that way, then you know that's where you may struggle. That doesn't mean they can't do the job. They can do the job as well. So I'll leave that to you to decide what to do. Now, the last accessory is very important. Again, picture on your screen, and that is the solar water controller. So we have it in one of our bedrooms, and with that controller, for me, I think it's a must. You can see what the temperature of your water is. You can see when the water is automatically being pumped into the tank. Okay, you can set it for automatic or manual. You know, you can actually see various different functions. You can set timers. You can set various ways to which you want your system to operate automatically. So that's quite a convenient thing, an important thing to have, so you know what is going on with your water tank installation. So that is your controller. Now, one tip, guys. Here's one tip. When you install your solar tank, make very sure that when you install it, that you know you are ready to fill it up with water within a very few days, a day or two. If your solar water tank sits empty for long periods on your roof here in Ghana, with the intense sun beating on it, okay, what happens that it is very possible for the empty tank to generate so much heat within it that the tank could crack. Okay, now this is an extreme case of it sitting there for a long time, and obviously if that happens, then that's a problem. That would also invalidate your warranty, okay, because I read that as a small print from where we bought ours. So when you install your solar tank on the roof, try to, as quickly as possible, within 2-3 days, fill it up with water so that the sun doesn't overheat and cause damage or cause a weakening of the tank itself. So that is a tip that I want to give you guys. Somebody else asked, well, I've got a 6-bedroom house. I've got 4 people living there as a max. How big does my solar water tank need to be? The rule of thumb, okay, is 50 liters per person per day. Okay, so if you have 4 people in your house, okay, a day, you're going to use about 200 liters of hot water. A 200-liter tank should be fine. If you want to give yourself a bit more, just in case, then 250 liters should be fine as well. But just go with that 50 liters per person per day as a rule of thumb, and that should be fine for your home. No matter how big your home is, depends on the maximum number of people that you have. Obviously, if you have a 6-bedroom house and you want to size it for 6 people, then that is entirely up to you. You can do that as well and go for a 300-liter tank. All depends on your budget and what you want to spend and how the usage of your house, the diversity of the use in your house itself. All right. Now, what most people are interested in is a cost. So the cost of our solar water tank, this is a 250-liter tank, okay, with all the accessories that I mentioned, an inlet pump, an outlet pump, the solar controller, the integral backup electric heater, okay, including the installation and the commissioning afterwards. That total cost was 12,300 cedis, okay, 12,300 cedis, which is £1,538, or for our guys across the pond, about just over $2,000, okay, just over $2,000. It comes with a 1-year manufacturer's warranty, and there you have it. Okay, there you have it. There are places where you can probably get it slightly cheaper. Just do your research, have a look around. There's so many different manufacturers out there, so many different companies who do it. So have a look around, shop around, and make the right choice for yourself. So as I said in the beginning, I will do a follow-on video where I describe more in detail how the flat plate solar water heaters work. Again, they're not my preferred because they're fine, they're good, but not as efficient as the evacuated tube. I'll also do a comparison between solar hot water heaters and instantaneous electric heaters, okay? And that would cover the cost, the payback, typical maintenance cost, etc. So you can make a well-informed decision which one to go for. All right. For me, solar wins the day all the time, but I'll leave that to yourself to make that choice. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Very brief, as I said it would be. As usual, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button so that you always be aware when we upload a new and educational video for your viewing pleasure. All right, I'll say chemistry on behalf of God, and for me, guys, Yebeshia. See you next time.